I think we're there. Good evening, everybody, and welcome to another Photo Creative live feedback session. If you've never been here before and you don't know what Photo Creative is, it is a series of monthly challenges to help you grow your photographic skills and abilities. If you would like to join in and find out more, there is a link in the description below this live feed. Go and click it, go and check it out. And if you haven't got a clue who I am, my name is Mike Browne. I've been a professional photographer and trainer for longer than I care to imagine. And if you'd like to have a look at my images, again in the description below, you will find a link to my portfolio. A whole bunch of stuff in there. Beyond that, hello our regulars. Good evening everybody, great to see you. Great to see you. 2 evenings at a time this week. Now, I need to say right at the beginning, we may have an issue with the live stream because I bought a brand new webcam, which has been working fine all day until about 5 minutes ago. So you can imagine the panic of having to put the old camera back on and set it all up. Hey ho, there we go. Life sends us challenges. I keep getting little squirrely things on my stream, so apologies if anything is going wrong. I hope everything is good for you. So what are we going to be doing? Well, we're going to be having a look at all of your amazing images, and you really made me struggle this time. It was hard work going through these. Your compositions are really, really great. I am completely blown away by those. I don't think there's going to be a lot of us getting our things out and doing crops and stuff tonight. It's a struggle, this one. So it was really interesting, and I have taken on board what you asked. We're going to start at the other end tonight and work back. So there we go. Let me just check all my numbers, make sure everything's good. Don Johansson, you are a gentleman and a scholar, sir. Thank you very much indeed. Don just made a donation of $10, which helps to go towards the costs of running the group, because it is free to join, it is free to do these challenges, but obviously they do burn some time. I've still got to pay my PA, the lovely Emmeline, and any assistance with that is hugely appreciated. Thank you, Don. You are a gentleman and a scholar, and a big thank you shout out to everyone who is still making small regular donations. It does make a difference. We all need to keep the wolf from the door. All of us at the moment. It's a bit of a scary time, isn't it? So I'm just having a quick scroll through your comments to see. Fernando Alvarez, hola. Yes, I'm going to be on Lanzarote in a couple of weeks time running the workshop, so that's going to be fun. If any of you want to come on a workshop with me and do stuff in real life, go and check out the workshops page of the website. I'm sure there's a link to the website below. Just go to the workshops thing. They're just brilliant. It's a chance to really hang out with people like yourself who kind of want to give themselves the pleasure of a bit of dedicated time to your own photography. And, you know, you'll go home with stories to tell. And all the rest of it. Hope I can join. Fernando, it's really kind of you. Unfortunately, all the places are taken. If we bump into you somewhere, that'd be great, but I'm afraid all the places are taken. That workshop is sold right out. But if you see us somewhere, give us a wave. Yes, George Stevenson, thank you for that. Don't forget to click the like button, everybody, because it just helps and it propagates the system, and YouTube will tell more people about us and what we're doing. So that is fantastic. What do we got? We have got quite a few people joined in now, so I think without further ado we just will go and have a look at your images. So I can't talk about every single one, there are just way too many, but I will attempt to give feedback. It's my opinion obviously at the end of the day, but I'm hoping that everyone in the group will benefit. If I shout out a picture and go, I really love this because, take on board the because part. If on the other hand I see a picture and try and give that photographer a bit of encouragement because I think they need a little bit of help, have a listen, because what I'm saying to them could be applicable to you, because we are all in different places in our photography journey. We are all learners and experts all the way through. So allow me a moment just to mess about and fiddle around with my screen and get my shot set up. I think I am ready let's go look at some of your amazing portraits. And I was so surprised how many of you did join in. Now, of course, there are many more members of the group. Please join in these challenges. Don't be shy. It's not a competition, it's a challenge. It is a project for you to get your teeth into and practice your skills. But I really didn't think portrait, even though we kind of kept it open, it could be a portrait of a thing, not just a person, a thing or an animal or a place. If you could tell a little story and make a portrait of someone or something, I didn't expect so many of you to give it a go, because especially not so many people pictures, because most people don't really like photographing people. Right, I'm just going to get a couple of things lined up on my other monitor here, and I think we're pretty ready to go, so I can see the chat. Well, looky here. What can we say? As I've already said, I was extremely surprised to see so many of you guys shooting portraits. And you know what, Jonathan? That's just a cracking picture, isn't it? I think that's just a great picture of a squirrel. How surprised could you have a squirrel look? What can I say about it? Technically, of course, you're spot on. Absolutely bitingly sharp, despite all the things Facebook has a tendency to do to images. It's a great moment, perfectly captured. The light is just right, it's uncluttered in the background. I don't think there's anything I can say to add to it, but I am just shouting it out because it is a really great moment. I just can't help wondering how long you spent crouching around on your hands and knees following a couple of squirrels around trying to capture moments. I think it is a really great shot. I think this is a really nice picture from Susan. Hello, Susan. A young fisherman catching his first catch of the day. I mean, you know, this guy just looks proud, doesn't he? You know? And you've obviously thought about your shot. You've used a longer lens, a longer focal length, and a wide aperture, because that has separated this guy from the background with his fish there. I kind of like the gloves too, with the wet fingers. It's a lovely picture. Very gentle light. Love the engagement with the eyes. I also like the way the light is catching his hair. So, you know, nice work, Susan. It is. That's a good word for it, Anvo. A gentle, lovely light. That is absolutely what it is. Light is so important. Sometimes you can get away with strong, harsh light coming, you know, direct sunlight smashing into someone, but it causes some very hard edge sort of shadows. This light is very soft, very gentle, and it's really kind of helping this guy's expression. So I really do think it's a cracking picture. Let's just have a little scroll up through. Now this one here, Jane. You are a really accomplished photographer, Jane. I can remember years ago you know, continuously bringing out some beautiful stuff, and I do like this picture. Your lighting is gorgeous, and I kind of hesitate because you are good at this, but it feels to me as though it's a little bit underlit, as though maybe the exposure could have been a little bit stronger. It's kind of lacking in contrast. I don't know, maybe it's a look you were going for in particular. I don't know. There you are, Jane. I knew you'd be here. So I'm intrigued, you know, because I know you're good at this. So I was a bit surprised. To me, it looks a little bit underlit. Like it could have done with a little more light or a little bit more exposure. But I do like the way you're just using black and white. And I love the way that you're allowing the highlights to sort of show and the blacks to fade away. And that's just why I think it could have benefited from just a little bit more exposure or a little bit more light. Just my feedback. But it is a great portrait. It's a great portrait. Let's have a little look further up. This one, of course. She was lit by an overhead light sculpture. Ah, got it. Yeah, that makes total sense, because I'm guessing you didn't have a lot of light to work with. Unless you had a tripod to hold the camera still, you then got to struggle. You did a really great job if you're working in those situations. Elaine Frew, this just made me laugh. Because I just love the tongue hanging out. Say, ah, yeah. There's things about this I like as well, because you've shot this with a wide angle lens. You are very close to this deer. How do we know? It's because shorter focal lengths, wider angle lenses, they give that feeling of intimacy. They distort things a little bit. Look at the antler. The one closest to the camera is really curving out towards us, and that's how we kind of know that you are actually very close to this deer. I also kind of like the tree line and the antler. It kind of works together. What more can I say? I like the foot forward thing as well, and the humorous bit with the tongue. It works as a vertical shot well as well. The background is a little bit busy, but nonetheless it's still, you know, well, good on you for getting out there and giving it a lash, giving it a go. I updated my operating system this week as well, and that isn't helping matters, because things are working differently and I don't know what's happening. Sandy Frew. I think it's kind of good fun, this. All that high vis really sort of makes them stand out. And I just love the fact you caught these guys all having an ice cream. How could it be improved? I think the fact you're cutting this guy off through the ear, this fella over here on the right, I think it might have helped just a little bit if he was in the frame as well. You're obviously very close to these guys as well. They must have been aware of you. Maybe they weren't. I don't know, if you could have actually caught a bite or a leg midway sort of happening, I think that could have helped. It is it's just sort of humorous and good fun. I love the bit of ice cream on the guy's lip. That's a good point, Paul Trively. Yeah, or just having the two guys on the left and losing the guy on the right. So having said we're not going to do too much of our stick your hand up, get a piece of paper, grab your phone out, let's just try Paul's idea. So let's just slide something over the right. So we've just got the two guys on the left, and I'm just including the edge of this window. Where is it? Down here. I'm just kind of cropping after the word Albert Memorial, just after the word Memorial. What do you think, guys? Just a yes if you think that works a bit better, or an N if you like it the way it is. What do you think? Sue thinks that the third guy's expression is funny and he should be kept in there. George also could like seeing him in there, which is great. I totally agree, Jules Vids. 3 is a good number. It works really well in pictures. I think maybe just a little pan to the right, move back just a touch, possibly hang around just a little bit longer, Sandy. Try and capture a few more moments. Maybe you did, I'm not sure. That's all right, Mary, you're here now. Get yourself comfy. Good effort, good effort. Ken Cox. I like your use of black and white, and again, you're nice and sharp and all that good stuff. Ken, to me, the only thing missing here is just the moment. A local singer just finishing his set. It's kind of about trying to capture a moment, something that's going on with a portrait, whether it's a person or a thing. Again, it needs to sort of say something about that person, place or thing. And he looks like he's waiting for something rather than he's finished a set. So whether he'd sort of smile and acknowledge if he's finished a set and people are giving him a bit of applause, or maybe if you could have caught him just as he's finishing, you know, and he's lost in the music, I think that could have helped. But again, I think, yeah, Paul's just said, you know, it's a bit of a lack of involvement with the person in the picture. It's a picture of a guy sitting there with a guitar rather than someone. We're not getting the sense of he's energized or anything, which is a shame. Burst mode is a really useful thing in this context, because if you do get little moments and you're shooting on burst mode, you can then throw away the ones you don't want. You can often capture these fleeting moments a lot quicker. Yeah, Jules thinks the background's a bit bright and distracting. I would tend to agree, but I'm not too worried by the background. To me, I think the background's okay. It's getting that engagement, something, a bit of life into this fella, because if he's a musician, he should be full of life. There is a lovely picture. Who did this? One of our regulars, Crystal. What a great little moment. What a fantastic little shepherdess or goat herdess. Have a look at the light. I'm going to bang on about light. I do this a lot, don't I? But look at the light. Look at this little rim light. Look at this highlight running all the way around this little girl. This is what is making her really stand out from the background. Shooting against the light works, but you've got to be really careful because the background is dark as well, which means the background is in its own shade, just as this little girl is. Also, there is a great little moment here because, you know, if it was just the back view, yes, it would probably be nice, particularly if you could see more of the crook. But the fact that it's just that moment when she turned her head like that and looked at something just brings it together. Shame you haven't got the other goat's bum in. Do love a goat's bum. But hey, you know, you caught a beautiful moment, very well worked, and also I think the slightly gentle contrast also works very, very well for this image, for this shot. Shot with a slightly longer lens and a wider aperture. How do we know? Because the background is nice and soft and out of focus. It's not interfering with the subject. Russell Richard just said, this is of course photography. If you're not talking about light, you must be doing something wrong. Very true. Great shot, Crystal. Maud, let's have a look at yours. You got a happy little moment going on here. Dear friend Frances and her adoring husband Alan. Yeah, I get it. You're having a great evening with friends, and I totally get that. And I would say as a memory picture, it's a great memory. I like the way you've got her sharp, your friend Frances sharp, and her husband is just a little bit softer because of course us boys always take second place, don't we? I like her expression. Now the light isn't brilliant because obviously you are actually there having a nice evening with some friends. I think possibly if you could back off a bit, that might help. It's a little bit sort of, you know, cutting her off a little bit tight. And we've got a lot of yellows going on. If they could have been toned down a bit, you've got tungsten light. I think you fired a flash there. Yeah, I can see a little catch light in her eye, which is great. That's just sort of helped the lighting a bit. But I think if you could have just pulled that yellow down a bit, it would have helped. But nonetheless, still a nice image. I'm just checking to make sure everything's working all right. Yep, I think it is. Let's have a little scroll further up. There was some really quite fun, inventive ideas. Hello, Emma Port. I did notice this. Portrait of my polystyrene head. You haven't got a polystyrene head. You've been to Cameras Don't Take Pictures and I've met you many times. I like your treatment of it. I like the simple colours. So we've gone from a picture where that sort of oranginess didn't quite work to one where it kind of does, I have to say. It's a bit surreal, isn't it? That sort of soft featured polystyrene head making us really look at what? The hat. This is a portrait of a hat. And I like the simple use of colours. Everything is the same sort of gentle shade, which I think is really quite fun. You're doing some great imagery, Emma. What more can I say? I think it is a cracking shot. Emma Rawls, I liked this one because I like the expression. I do think this is a lovely picture, this little girl. And the background kind of works as well. I guess it's a radiator in the background with something hanging over it, but it doesn't matter. It just works. It's all a similar tone. I think the light's quite nice. I love her expression, the way she's lost in what she's doing. But I feel this is another one that's a little bit underlit. It could do with just a bit more exposure or just a bit more light. And I don't know, throwing a question open to everybody here. Do you think, it looks to me like you've put a little bit of a white vignette around the edges. I'm not sure if you have or not, Emma. Please, if you're here, correct me. But I don't think it's helping. I'm not sure having a brighter edge around the darker little girl is helping. Were it the other way round, it might. But it looks like you've got that slightly brighter thing. What do you think, guys? If there is a bit of a lighter vignette around it, do you think it works or not? Give us a Y or an N. Just let's have a look. Let's see. It is a lovely picture. I agree with you, Nicola McKee. It is a lovely picture. Okay. We're splitting the judges. Hi there, iGlow, out there in Iceland. Coming over to Iceland soon as well. Beginning of December, Iceland workshop kicks off. That one's booked out too. Okay, cool. Yeah, we're kind of split. A bit more light on her face. Yeah, I would absolutely agree, guys. Exactly, Brian Leonard. I would agree. I think that the slightly brighter vignette, it's making her face seem kind of darker than it is already. Hey ho, never mind. It's still a great image. Let's scroll up a little bit. Oh, I've got to talk about this one for a minute because I like this picture. Anna Maria Mireia. Hello, Anna Maria. I don't know that we've met you before. So good on you for getting a picture in here. Last concert you photographed, guitar player from a rising Romanian band. I kind of like this. It's a bit dark and it's a bit moody and it's very sort of bandy, isn't it? And I quite like the way you've just captured that fret hand, if that's the correct word, not being a musician myself, in the highlight. It's sort of bringing it all together. You've exposed for the highlight, and yes, I like those sort of lasers going through the mistiness. It's pretty good. There's still just enough detail in those shadows to sort of, we can see what's going on, but we're really, bam, where do you look first, everybody? You look straight at that hand. I think it's a really great shot. What more can I say? What more can I say? Let's have a little scroll up. Now this I thought was kind of interesting as well. Patrick Schofield. Hello, Patrick. That's a selfie. Too many wrinkles, so you went with black and white. I think this is kind of interesting because I love this highlight. Now I know we just talked about soft light and the soft features, you know, with the little girl's face with the sheep and the little boy with his fish. But of course you can use these things as creative tools, and I think this is quite good fun. I rather like that highlight. But Patrick, I think if you could have had that exposure a bit darker, it might have worked better because it would be really quite surreal. Where these highlights are actually burnt out, I think if they were darker and we almost lost what's going on around you, we'd still have had a little outline to one side, but it would have been kind of quizzical. I think it would have kind of made us stop and go, whoa, what's that for a minute? Oh wow, it's the edge of somebody's face. I quite like that. And we'd have still picked up this little highlight on your glasses there. Good on you for doing your first ever selfie. And I know what you mean. There's, you know, I look at myself from, I hate having this thing going on my throat. I don't mind the grey hair so much, or some of the lines, but I don't like that thing. But anyway, there you go, turkey neck. Yeah, try taking the exposure down. I like the way you were brave enough to play around with a really bright highlight on your face. I think that's interesting. Don't ever be afraid to experiment, people. I think Ian Howard's done a bit of experimentation here as well. I think it's kind of good fun. Doesn't matter if it's taken on an iPhone. Okay, it's not quite as strong an exposure as it would be nice to have, but I like your creative thinking. If you're here, Ian, what are you shooting down? Because that's not cardboard. There's something reflective going on here. I'm just intrigued. Getting that little face stuck in the end there. Again, I think there is a decisive moment thing, because you've almost caught mid-blink. Now that highlight, as opposed to the last one, is just a bit distracting. Whether or not there could have been a moment where, you know, your grandson just turned his face a little bit and you didn't quite have that highlight. I know it's difficult to do. You're holding something and you're looking down through there, but, you know, I am intrigued as to what you were using as a tube. I think it's great fun. I'm going to scroll on up a bit and have a look at a couple more. Julia Bevan, that is a cracking picture. You know, I would say that is a great portrait of a hen harrier. You've caught just the right moment, the engagement of the bird looking at the ground, the position of the wings. The colours are all kind of one tone pretty much all the way through, and that makes it so easy to look at. Love just the positioning of all of it. If you're here, Julia, I'd love to know, were you shooting on burst mode? Were you capturing these moments as it was coming through, as it was happening? You're shooting with a long lens, and, you know, obviously, because you're going to be at some distance. And you've got your focus in just the right place. It's absolutely worked. The exposure's spot on. It's bright, and the bird is really standing out from the background. It looks to me like it's been cropped quite heavily because there is a lot of graininess going on in there. But hey, that is often the case with wildlife photography. Wildlife photographers often have to use extremely expensive equipment so that you can get that ISO high enough and the shutter speed high enough and have a monster killer death lens so that you can fill the frame with whatever your subject may be, because you can't always get close. That is a cracking image, Julia. You should be really proud of yourself with that one. I just realised it's 27 minutes past already. I'm going to scroll up just slowly. I'll tell you what, I'm going to speak less and just look at a couple more things. Andre Santos. That is great use of light, sir. Light is everything. Keep saying it. This is the thing for you all to sort of really study, particularly those of you that are struggling with these sorts of things a little bit. But just by having this little pool of light on your son's face and a great expression, you know, he obviously is something of a model. I love the way you've been unafraid to let everything around go dark. You've just got this little pool of light and you've focused right smack into it. Technically spot on. Great job. Really cracking portrait. I wonder how you did the lighting, whether or not you just pushed a little bit of light in there with something, whether it's a little reflector, whether it's natural light, however it happened, doesn't really matter. It's a great portrait. It really is. I think anyone would be proud to have taken that. Let's move up a bit. I'm determined to get to the top. What is it with me? And I like the top. Who was brave enough to have a go at doing a portrait of a mushroom? Alan Virgil Costashi. That is kind of fun, isn't it? The little face in the middle of the mushroom. What were you doing for you to be crawling around on your hands and knees examining mushrooms that closely that you found a face on one? I just think it's quite good fun. Your focus is spot on. I kind of like your composition. I like the way the background's blurry and all the rest of it. But Alan, I think your exposure could have come down a little bit. As a portrait, is it a portrait of a mushroom? I'm taking the humorous approach because I think that's kind of what you went with. It's a fantastic picture. How could it be improved? It's just a bit bright, I think. Now, just a little bit darker on the exposure, and I think it would have just given all those colours and details a little bit more pop. But it's still a cracking picture. Good on you for entering it. What else have we got going on up here? Just so many. How can we ignore this expression? Jessica Vendetti. Denise said, love the warmth in this lady. I would totally agree. It is a lovely picture of this lady. I love her expression. The way she's sitting, the way she is engaging is absolutely spot on. It's a little bit of a shame about, I don't mind the flowers so much. It's something to do with the chair, which is distracting. But never mind, it is what it is. It looks to me like, you know, it's one of those moments that you just grabbed. And if your mum looks like that at 97, I think we all just hope we do too. What a great lady. Jessica, I really like that. I think it's a cracking portrait, and say hello to your mum. Tell her she's been on YouTube. What else? What else? DPR Breadin. I think you've got a great thing going on here. This is quite a nice moody one. So okay, so you did this in a studio. Nice use of light. Look at the light, people. Look at the light. Where's the light coming from? A real question. Stick it in the chat. Where is the light coming from? Where is it coming from? I don't mean, is it a softbox, or is it a snoot, or is it a what, or is it an LED panel? I mean, where is the light coming from? This is a little exercise, because by looking at things, you can start to tell what is going on. Where's it coming from? Bit more detail, please. Back to the side, yes. Top right. Left plus behind. Ah, so yeah, two directions. Exactly, Christoph. Absolutely, yeah. There's light coming in two directions, and it works really well. Look. The highlights here say there is a light slightly behind and coming forward. How do we know it's coming forward? Because of this shadow here, and it's catching in her hair, and it's putting this gorgeous little rim light all down her arm. But then there is another one behind her somewhere as well, coming in the other direction, and I would say it's probably set a fraction lower. I'm not sure, but again, look at this little beautiful little highlight, light and shade, how it's folding around her arm, and again lighting up her hair. And it's bringing out all the marvellous shapes in her features. But then there is another one in front, and the one in front has been set quite a bit lower so that we're not having full black shadows. But interesting, I don't know if you did it or not, Mr. Breadin. I'm guessing it's a Mr. Breadin. Without the front light, because that might have looked quite cool, been really moody, but that front light is just filling in the shadows enough. How do we know there's a front light? You can see it in her eyes, these little tiny squares reflecting. There is a big softbox in front. Great use of light, and I like the way you've gone for that slightly dark sort of a look. You can do this in nature, of course, people. If you're struggling with light, you can of course do this in nature, because it's a question of looking and understanding where great light lives, and it lives in some very unexpected places. But light is of course the key. Lawrence Hand. Okay. I'm the one who said do a portrait of not necessarily a person. It could be a place or a thing, and you've kind of done a thing in a place. Technically, I'd say you're bang on. Your exposure's pretty much spot on. It's all lovely and sharp, yeah. Somehow, I like the way you've used a low angle, but it's not quite working. I think possibly a slightly wider angle lens, and I'm not sure having the car quite so hard to the left works. I do like this wall and these doors. I totally get it. I totally get it. I'm just wondering if maybe you've been a little bit more on the call to move the car around at a bit of an angle. If, of course, it was your car to move. If not, break the window, steal it, and move it anyway. Those of you who don't understand English humour, that was a joke. But yeah, I don't know. I like your exposure and all the rest of it. Somehow it's not quite working. Again, I think if you were sort of 45 degrees straight onto the window, like the barn, but maybe a bit lower, slightly wider angle lens, I think that could have come together. Also, maybe made a bit more use of that sky. You've got a really interesting sky, and the sky is working with the colour of the roof as well. Could a little zoom blur have helped? Asked Denise Savage. Maybe. But I'm not sure that it would have added to it being, you know, if you like, a portrait of a car in a place. You know, so what would be the aim of this shot? It'd be something like to say the person who owns this lives here or hangs out here, or something like that. I think a zoom blur would have then been more technique and less kind of on it with the portrait, with the person, with the whatever it may be. Mary Rasman. I kind of like it, and I can see where you're going, but we've got a little bit of a thing going on here with the light. You know, we were talking about those hard-edged shadows. They're not really helping, these hard lines around his face. And I think the tree in the background is just distracting, just a little bit. And again, his eyes are right smack in the middle. Now, I'm not against putting people or things or the point of interest in the middle, even though they say you shouldn't. But if you do, I think there needs to be a reason for it. So maybe there's something geometrical going on in the background or something like that. The background in this case is a little bit distracting. Could you have used a longer lens and a wider aperture? Maybe not. Maybe you didn't have them with you. Good one, Russell Richard. Just said it's an unfortunate time of day. You're very good with that. That's good wording. Good effort. Good on you for getting stuck in, and good on you for giving it a go, you know? But I think, yeah, that light isn't really helping. Now, something which might have helped a bit, I don't know, I wasn't there, was if he was to turn, your son was to turn 45 degrees, 90 degrees, sorry, to his left. I don't know what's behind him, but if there was something dark woodlandy behind, you'd have had backlight, which would have put one of those lovely rim lights around him. His face would have been in his own shadow, and the lighting on his face would have been much, much kinder. Even if you're in direct sunlight, you can often turn someone and they stand in their own shade. And it can really help. Mary, if you get the chance to have another go, give it another go. Try, if someone's in bright sun, try turning their back to it. Hey Mary, glad you're here. Give it a go. Try turning their back to the sun so you're facing the sun. But you've got to be very careful with that exposure, because sometimes your camera will get confused and turn them into a silhouette. Jane Barnes says, fewer than half of us have clicked the like button. Yes, please help me out, guys. It really would. Just go there, click that like button. Click in some likes. As the younger generation of YouTubers say, smash it. Right, let's just scroll up a little bit more. What a happy picture, Dan Drummond. That is a really vegetable farmer's market. This gentleman was selling vegetables. I love his face. Dan, you're always, we know you, you know, you're great with light and all these sorts of things and capturing these sorts of moments. And it's a great moment, it's a great expression. I love the way you've conformed to the thing which says don't let the nose protrude beyond the cheek, because you get the nose stick out. I like the light here. I like this highlight down the back of his head. You've got light coming from two directions. It's really nice. And it's also picking up the shapes of these beets or something. Only thing I could say there, Dan, is I'd probably like to see a little bit more of his veg, because I think it would say a bit more about him. I get it, the veg are there, but maybe a few more of the veg. I don't know. But it's a great shot nonetheless. You guys rock. Thank you ever so much for taking heed on that and putting in a few more likes. There's so many great pictures in here. Who can we give a bit of help to? Because I mean, look, I mean, Neil, what a beautiful picture, you know. I'm going to go here. David DeGenova. What a cool idea. What a cool idea. What with Halloween and all that kind of stuff, I just think it is such good fun. I'm guessing this is your daughter or someone. Maybe you just found a random child and buried her in a pile of leaves and put pumpkins around her. Either way, it is such a cool idea. And I do like the way you've said something about this girl and pumpkins and Halloween. The light is not helping you. What was the wording? An unfortunate time of day, I think. Because again, we got these very, very harsh, hard-edged shadows. And I think, again, maybe if you could have done this the other way around, so that she's facing away from the sun, because at the angle you're at, you're not going to get lens flare. So if she had the back of her head to the sun and the shadows were coming forwards, I think it might have worked a lot better. Also, if you could have got her to sort of have her head more flat, do you know what I mean? More upright, instead of her sort of eyes trying to peer up at the camera like that. But really great effort, good creative thinking, and it's a really amusing picture. Where are we? We've only got 20 minutes to go. Look, I'm only about a third of the way up, so I'm just going to scroll slowly just so everyone gets to have a look. I mean, look at these beautiful Nancy Catcher. That is a beautiful, beautiful pet portrait. I'm sorry, I've got to click it. Look at the engagement. Look at that engagement. That is saying an awful lot about that dog. That dog is engaged. Look at the expression. It's interested, and therefore interesting. And I think this is a really, really important thing to notice. Now, your light is just a little bit hard. I am not someone who bangs on about burnt highlights, but in this case, these ones are just a bit strong, and if you could just token that exposure down a little tiny bit before doing it. I don't know if you're using a window or artificial light. I'm trying to look at the eyes. I think you're doing this with a window, which is pretty accomplished. If you're here, Nancy, I'd love to know. But I'm being hard on you right now because these burnt highlights are not helping in this situation, because you've got such a great composition, such a great position, such great engagement with the dog. I can imagine you there making noises and stuff and squeaking toys to make it work. Hey Nancy! Done in sunlight. That is a really accomplished thing to do, and also very difficult to follow the light. If it's artificial light, you can just set a manual exposure, lighting's done, forget it. You haven't got to even think about it. When it's available light and the sunlight, because that's going to change all the time, and all the time you're trying to work with the dog and keep the dog in the right place, and the light's changing, and there's so many things to do. Really, really good work. Beautiful shot. Cracking. Oh look, that's interesting. Eric! Now, you know, we were talking earlier about having someone facing away and just using rim light. And this, I think, it's pretty cool. It's a great idea, Eric. I love the way you've just brought this lady out just by using the rim light, which I think is pretty good. And I quite like this little catch light. Now, it hasn't quite worked, and I think if there was a bit of rim light coming from around here as well, it would have helped. Whether it's available light or not, I don't know. But I love the way you've exposed for the highlights. What do I mean by that? If you're puzzled by that one, folks, then had Eric just pointed the camera straight at this lady, the camera would have seen all that black, and it would have then tried to make it daylight. The highlights would probably have burnt out, and of course we'd have all the detail in her shirt and the entire back of the sofa. But it would just look a bit conventional, I think is the word. Eric has pushed that exposure down. He's argued with the light meter. He's argued with the camera and taken that exposure down and exposed just for these highlights. So he's put the exposure in the place where the highlights haven't burnt out. Great idea, Eric. I would recommend go and work on it a little bit. Have another go. Do a bit more, because I think it is really good. Good point, Anne. Anvo, Annette Vorm. Oh, you're Anvo. Oh, I see, you've gone to Anvo now. Good point, Annette. If she looked to her left, it would have been a really great, profile shot. Good point. Eric, really good effort, my friend. Go and give it a go. Go and give it a go. Wendy Lamb. That's a smashing picture again. You've got some great light going on there. And again, a great little moment. Was he really in the woods posing for his portrait picture? Anything is possible. If you captured that out in the woods, then that is totally stunning. And the expectation you have set is very high for when you come over on the Zurich workshop next spring. That is a cracking picture. Beautiful light going on. Lovely light. And I know you're here somewhere, Wendy. Where are you? Come on, Wendy, speak to us. Yeah, beautiful light. Look at the light, people. I don't believe that was in the woods. Look at those catch lights in the eye. It's just a really cute picture. What more can I say? I am going to move on because I want to try and cover as many as possible. Oh, I clicked the wrong thing. Well, we're here. Let's talk to Cliff. It's a great moment, Cliff, and again, you've got some lovely backlight. How do we know? Look at this rim light. You see that little high? It's brighter on the edge than it is all the way around. So you are in some great light, and there's some really nice catch lights in the eyes. You cheated, it was on a workshop. Ha! Wendy Lamb. Great catch lights in the eyes, great expression. Love the position of the head. I just feel the whole thing could have done with just a little bit more exposure, Cliff. Now, I know many of you may be thinking, well, hang on, I set exactly the exposure perfectly according to the light meter, or maybe you did it with a semi-auto mode or whatever. The thing is, the light meter will give you a great starting point. But when we want to start being more creative, that's time to start arguing with the light meter, because I would suggest that exposure is also part of composition. How bright or dark do you want your picture to be? It's not up to the camera, it's up to you. The camera will give you an exposure which will capture an image. Great, awesome, and many times that will be perfect. However, in creative photography, we also need to think a little bit. I really love it, and I just think, had the exposure been a bit brighter, and you could have gone a little bit brighter, it would have just helped, a bit more contrasted. Great capture though, Cliff. So many pictures that just deserve to be talked about. Look at this little face here from Lorraine Etnier. Wonderful. This one I think is really kind of interesting. Andy Gosling. Ledbury Heritage Centre. You've got some great light and you've got a nice moment, and you're just saying something about this lady. I love the fact the blur in the spinner here. Andy, I'm wondering if your camera got itself a little bit confused, because again, I'm going to talk burnt highlights. This isn't working well, where the detail's completely gone around her ear and on the side of her face, patches of her hands, and on the spinner. Andy, I think possibly what's happened here is your camera has seen this darker background and it has tried to brighten the whole thing up, which is what we were just talking about. So your camera's a good starting point, but always remember you are the one in charge. So if you're watching someone like this, how would you go about it? I'd recommend you watch the person. Now, before you even go to take your proper, in inverted commas, picture, you just, if you're not sure how to argue with a light meter, just take the shot and have a look at it. Zoom in, have a close look. Don't just chimp the back and move on. Have a proper look. Right, highlights are burnt out. If you use your histogram, that will immediately tell you your highlights are burnt out. And in looking at a shot like this, you know there really shouldn't be any burnt highlights. Different if you got the sun in shot or sparkles on water. But with something like this, if you see the histogram spiking off on the right, you know that you can bring that exposure down. Shoot another quick test shot. Doesn't matter what she's doing, but you adjust the exposure, bit darker, take a test shot, have a look. Right, boom, we've got our exposure where we want it, which would mean the background would go much darker, which would then mean we would be far more aware of her. So that would be my coaching to you, Andy. But it's a really great moment. Good on you. Good on you. We're only halfway up and we haven't got much longer to go, so I'm sorry guys, I am going to move up a bit. You are completely right in saying to me to start at the bottom, because we're probably not going to reach the top. Nicola McKee. I agonised over this. I think I'd said in the group I ended up with about 20 pictures and I had to try and get them down to 6. This was absolutely one, as were others. I just think it's a really great picture. I just love the shapes going through and the way you know, I'm guessing that's you in the background there, but there's some nice light. Look at the backlight on Nicola's arms. It's making that shape. We don't need to see the camera. We know exactly what this person is doing from the positions of the hands. Excuse me. Where's my glass of water? We know exactly what you're doing because of the position of the hands, and it's that backlight behind you which is working really, really well. Like the way you've got this cocktail sharp and allowed this one to go soft. Nicola, I don't know if you do a bit of post-production, shoot raw, but again, I'm gonna bang on about highlights. This is really rare. That highlight is spoiling your picture, which is such a shame because it's a beautifully put together picture. I love the softness of the colours. Good one, really nice one, and it's so straight. Look at the symmetry, straight down the middle, boom, and those lines going across the bottom. Really nicely done. Look at this happy little face. Christoph, what a great portrait. I mean, you know, what more can you say? Again, you got some great light. We got soft light on this little girl's face. Matching colours. Look at the trees, the autumnal, the autumnness, the colour of the boots and the socks and the skin tones and the leaves. It's all kind of working together. Very, very gentle light on her face. And you've caught a happy little moment. I think it's a lovely picture. I don't think there's much more I can say about it. Paul Lynn, what a beautiful picture of a kingfisher. Forgive me, people, I am just going to move up a little further. This one. Damien Dickox. A portrait of autumn. Oh, I struggled with this and I'm so sorry. It was in my final folder because I just loved your thinking. You did a portrait of a season and I totally get it. It is so simple, but in my opinion, extremely effective. Beautiful light. We keep talking about light. We always do. Backlight coming through the leaf is bringing all these little veins to life. When you have something slightly or even a lot translucent, light coming through it towards the camera helps. It's making all the shapes. Look at this gorgeous little rim light, which is giving the edge definition against the dark background. Notice how the other side is fading into the background a bit because it doesn't have the rim light. It doesn't need the rim light. Our brains fill in the gap because we've already seen it on this side. I think that is a really creative idea, Damien. A portrait of a season, and it is so simple and so effective. Great shot of a zebra there, Ian Watkins. You've caught just the right moment. Look at the engagement. Again, this is a portrait of a zebra. It's not just a picture of a zebra. The zebra is engaging with you. Look at the ears. If a zebra or a horse or a donkey's got the ears back, they just look pissed off and not very happy. It's a cracking image. Coaching, I think, maybe just a touch more exposure. To me, it just looks a little bit dark and a little bit grey. I think it could have been just a little bit more exposure or maybe just a little bit more contrast, either in post-production or you can dial it up a bit in your camera. I love this one, Ken. You're good with a selfie. You're good with a selfie. Ken spent a couple of days with me, flew over from the States and spent a couple of days doing some one-on-one around Southampton, and some cracking shots there, Ken. I don't know if you're here, my friend, but hello. I'm going to move on a bit because we've only got 5 minutes and it's going to go run over, isn't it? And I do want to just try and make my way up to the top. I thought this Erman Session Potochar, the pup boy. I mean, yeah, it's a studio shot and it looks to me like you are probably a professional photographer or an extremely accomplished amateur. Great use of light. It's just an interesting and different portrait, isn't it? You know, going for the, what do you call it, fetish gear, catalogue look. Beautifully lit. Look at these highlights down those powerful legs, and you know, the light on the face and around the eyes, and the brighter area in the background, which is making the subject stand out. It's quite an accomplished bit of studio portraiture, and it's certainly eye-catching. As soon as you photograph something that, you know, is outside of the norm, the normal scope of everything, it starts to get interesting. That looks like Mr. Cleesby. It is. Nice picture, Gary. Again, I like your use of light. I think it's quite good fun, this, using the black umbrella with your black coat and letting the light just sort of pick up between your hands and your head. Really, really great. For anyone who doesn't know, we hijacked a charity's photo composition, and loads of you good guys entered into their competition and raised some money for them, and Gary beat me. His picture beat mine. Good on you, Gary. By the way, I will be speaking to Alibari soon, because see if they're doing something similar, and then we will use it for one of our challenges as well, because if we can support them in the wonderful work they do in looking after homeless people, I think it would be a really good thing to do, particularly as it is coming towards Christmas. Look at these great pictures. Look at these great moments. I think this, Cornell, another band shot. It's another musician portrait. Is it a portrait? Is it a band shot? I don't know. It's an interesting and powerful image, and I think this is again a decisive moment, capturing that moment when the green light in the background, you know, is just framing him up perfectly. What more can I say? It's a good, powerful energy moment. And in a moment, we are going to need to go and start looking at the ones that I chose as my picks of the month. This one was one, Raphael. Again, I know I'm looking at a lot of pictures that work. I think this is a really interesting self-portrait. I'm guessing it's you. But it's really interesting and well done, you know, to get the focus on the camera. And again, look at the light. This great little bit of light catching the arm and giving it definition, and the light on your face. I love the expression. I'm assuming it's you. If you're here, Raphael, please tell us. And the darkness of it and the low contrast. Hey, Raf Cos. You're very welcome. Is this you? Please tell us. I just think it's a great picture. It's noteworthy. It's notable. You know, it's saying something about the person in the picture. You did it in your room, brilliant. But it's saying something about the person in the picture. We know that this person is a photographer because of the light, because of the camera. It's not just the camera that's telling us that you're a photographer. I kind of like the grainy treatment as well, and the monochrome sort of a look. It just works. It just works really, really well. Look at all these portraits. I thought this was an interesting thing, Susan Firth. Because this says a lot about someone without actually seeing the person, you know. We don't need to see the person's face to sort of get an idea of who they are. And, you know, they like creating, making clothes, doing something. Quick knitting story for you. My ex-girlfriend many years ago, someone I was with for many years, she knitted my brother a great big huge long scarf. You know, it went 3 times around his neck and it was still around his knees. One winter's night he was riding his little Honda C90 out from somewhere, and the scarf went in the front wheel. He went round and round and round, and bang, pulled his face into the speedometer. I shouldn't laugh, but whenever I see anything being knitted, it reminds me. Sorry, Susan, I digress. I think it's a really interesting way to say something about someone without showing their face. George, you know, this is so you, isn't it? And I got to give you a shout out. Yeah, okay, you do quite a bit of post-production stuff, and this is obviously a bit of work in post-production, but I do love the way you kind of photographed the 2 different sides of your own persona. It's a great idea. I think your light isn't helping you. It's somehow the exposure I feel needed to come down a bit. Of course, this could be a monitor calibration thing as well, because if your monitor is, say, a little bit dark, you might brighten it up. I know mine is calibrated. To me, it looks a little bit bright. I don't know about anyone else. Do you think it looks a bit bright or not quite so bright? To me, it looks a bit too bright. But it's a brilliant idea, and you do your post-production stuff very well indeed. What could have worked? I think within what you were attempting to do, and what you have done, is, you know, having the female side, if you like, a little bit brighter than the dark side, because you've said in your description, you know, the darker side of you is the bright side, which is the female. And I think it's a really great idea. Have another go, George. You probably will, because I know what you're like. You get so stuck into this stuff. Good bit of creativity. What else? Here's a lovely bit of creativity. Look at that. Sajid Ali Khan. Self-portrait, just using the smartphone for light, and it works, doesn't it? My coaching for you, Sajid, would purely be that your shirt, the light is hitting your shirt because the light is close, and it's causing this little bit of a hot spot, and it is distracting from the best bit, which is the way the light is hitting your face. And I like your expression. Had you done up your jacket, or maybe worn a different shirt, I think that would have absolutely rocked so much better, because you'd have just had the brightness of the phone and the brightness of your face, and it would have spoken a lot about it. Your shirt is distracting you, but nonetheless, great shot, great image. Okay, we're getting near to the top. What else do we do? We're going to have a quick look here. Sarah Moore. Again, you've got a great expression, but the whole thing is looking kind of muddy, which is such a shame. I'm guessing it was possibly a bit underexposed, and maybe you kind of tried to brighten it a bit, but you know, the contrast has fallen out of it. The whites are not white, the whites are very, very grey. And it's a shame, because you've caught a great little moment. There are nice little catch lights in this little puppy's eye. The fact you've gone in close on the face, it kind of works, I think, in this situation. And it's a shame it looks a bit grey. But a well captured moment there, Sarah. Oh, so much creativity. Look at it all. Paul Tyzak. Wonderful piece of light. Look at that light. A portrait of a dove. How on earth did you get a dove lit like that? And I get it. It might be a bit of post-production. I don't mind, because you can't really fake that sort of light. Look at the textures in every single feather. It's kind of a little bit of the light and dark side of a pigeon. Have you ever watched the movie The Birds? Yeah, I think it's a great shot. It really is. I know, I'm hurrying, aren't I? I didn't expect so many entries. There are so many great shots. I mean, who did this? Moira Smith. Great idea. Great idea. I'm sorry, I'm not going to stop and talk about it too much. But if you haven't studied these and had a good look at them, we have now got to the top. And I'm sorry, if your picture hasn't been discussed, I'm sorry, there's just too many. But I hope you found some of that feedback valuable. So my next job is to get our screen set up, ready for us to go through who my chosen, if you like, images of the week were. Of course, this is only my opinion. It doesn't mean I'm necessarily right. I am just chosen the ones that stood out to me as being the strongest. So why don't we have a look and see what we have got. These are in no particular order. These, if you like, call them runners up, but they're in no particular order, but the ones that just jumped out at me and I just thought, I kind of like that. So first up was, forgive me, I'm just going to take that nasty interfering background out, there we go, was Paul Trively. I just think it's really an interesting portrait, and it says something about your personality. I know it's you because I've met you. But even if I didn't know that was you, it says so much about the personality, the expression, the eyes, the way you've managed to focus hard onto the eyes, and you know, this like three-dimensional chess game or whatever it is. The simplicity of the colours, the way there is a blue on the top tier and a blue in the corner of the room behind it, the fact that, you know, your hair kind of works with the colour of the background, the simplicity of the jumper, and the whole thing is caught up on your expression. The eyes are like super concentrated, and the position of your hand, it just sort of reinforces what's going on in the eyes. I think it is a really great picture. Even the angle of your arm, just bringing you in from the side, and that sort of almost negative space up in the top left corner. I do think it's a cracking picture, and it did jump out at me. Next we have, forgive me, I need to move some things around on my screen because I want to make sure I get this right. I thought this was just, boom, Barbara Titone, or Titone, or Titoni, I don't know. A bit of a steampunk theme going on. Yeah, I get it. There's post-production and stuff going on here. I guess if you're here, Barbara, I'd love to know more about how you did this. Now, it's just such a strong image, and it has been really nicely done. You know, the light on your face sort of is working with the rest of the steampunk stuff that you've got going on around it. And I'm kind of intrigued by the two highlights. It's annoying because I'm not screen sharing now, and I'm pointing at things with my pointer and you guys can't see it. But you know, the highlights where I'm guessing you have photographed a print or something in order to bring your face into it, they work. It's like, you know, they shouldn't, but they do. I think it's a brilliant bit of creativity. If you're somebody thinking, it's Photoshop, well, I would say it has a part to play in it. And of course, these are creative challenges. This is about creative. So, you know, I don't have a problem with that at all. Cracking image. I don't know if you're here, Barbara, because I haven't seen any words. If this is a nice surprise when you watch the replay, great. But either way, I think it is a cracking shot. Absolutely, Sue Owen. I can see that on a book cover. That should be a book cover. Excellent. Loved it. Just like this one, which is a totally different sort of a picture of a portrait. And I also just totally loved it. Dina Peters. It's it just makes me smile. It's unique. It's different. How often do you see a pet portrait taken from completely underneath where the pet is standing on you? It's just, I think it's just bonkers. It's brilliant. I love the way you have caught this perfect decisive moment too. Look at the dog's expression. Something is taking that dog's attention. It's that quizzical look. It's saying something about this dog. This is quite an inquisitive little dog. Maybe I'm making up a total story in my head. I don't know. But it is, I think, a cracker. I love the sky. That sky just totally works. And you were so right to shoot it in black and white. It just works. What more can I say? It's kind of, keep looking at it. You are such a talented bunch. Obviously, it's because you do these challenges, which means make sure you click in a like. But what a cracking picture. We have got another animal portrait, another kind of off the wall portrait from Diane Nicholson, which I just totally love. We don't need to see the whole horse to know exactly what's going on. I can't remember the word. What's it called when horses do this? I should know this. My mum was a British Horse Society riding instructor. I was riding horses many years before I ever got on a motorbike. Why does it work? You think, okay, you get a horse doing, I can't remember what it's called, let's just say laughing. But why does it work photographically? Shallow depth of field. No, it's not the braying, Nicola. Braying is the noise, you know. There is a word for when they do this. It's something to do with what they're doing is they're tasting the air. They have sensors inside their top lip. And when they curl back and they look like they're laughing or sneering at you, they're actually, it's not, no, when they're whinnying or making the noise, they have their mouth more open. They're exposing these sensors in their top lip to sniff the air. That's what they're doing, but I can't remember the word. No, neigh is the noise. That's a neigh or a whinny. Anyway, whatever, back to photography. Why does it work? Shallow depth of field, we know precisely where we are meant to look. Light, light, light. Look at the light. The brightest area of the picture is the place we want to look. The light is again coming from sort of in front but slightly behind, and it's catching the nostril. It's putting the veins and shapes and textures into the muscles of the horse's mouth. It is catching every single whisker, you know, around the nose, the nozzle. Nozzle? Horses don't have nozzles. But anyway, you know what I'm trying to say. Yeah, the light is what's making it work. The choice of a long focal length and a shallow depth of field. But it's the light which is drawing our attention, and we know what's going on. I think it's a great portrait without showing the whole horse. If I figure out or remember what it's called when horses do this, I'll just put it in the group. Fleeman, is that it? Ah, didn't know that, Sharon. Thank you for sharing that. But I think there's a verb version of it. When a horse, it isn't Fleeman's, it's, I don't know. I have to ask my cousin Sarah because she's a horse therapist. So, who have we got next? I thought this was just a beautiful picture. From Dean Minett. Beautifully, beautifully lit and just different, eye-catching, engaging. To me, it just sort of, I think you'll agree, it makes you stop and look. Beautifully lit. Light is so important, and you know, Dean's been around the group for a long time. We know Dean is good at this sort of stuff. Look at this again, that little, I'm pointing and you can't see me do it. Look at the mannequin in the black dress with the back. Look at the left shoulder. Look at that little catch light against the black, giving it the shape. We've got little catches of light going on, coming from behind, where the light is hitting that mannequin in the face and wrapping around, giving it the texture. Then we've got the one sitting down facing the camera, absolutely square on. You put a lot of work into that, Dean. And the light is coming from the side and slightly below, and it looks like there's a little bit of light coming from above. It's just different and it's engaging, and it's almost, I don't know, a statement on high society life, if you like. I'm making up a story in my own head, but hey, that's me. I just think it's a cracker, as Denise said from down under. On you, Dean. So, okay, the one that I kept coming back to over and over again, I couldn't help it. Does anyone want to hazard a guess? Does anybody want to hazard a guess? Write a name. Write a couple of names in the chat. We haven't done that before. Let's try it. I got a phlegmy eye. There's something going on in my eye. Well, I wipe it. Who do you think it might be? Baby. Baby. Brilliant. No, come on. Who do you think it might be? Okay, I'm not going to make you wait. I'm just going to show you. Good one, Glyn. Glyn said, it's me. It was actually Philip Tranter. You know, of course, when choosing things, we can only choose what we go with. It would be inauthentic if I was to choose something else. And of course, someone else might choose a different picture. but I think it is a great street portrait. The light is absolutely cracking on this guy's face. It is coming from the side, but it's not hard edge shadows. It is just making one side of his face slightly brighter than the other, which is giving wonderful shape to his nose and his eyes and his expression. Same with the hat. Look at how, as you're facing him, the left side of the hat is slightly brighter than the right, and that is what's giving it the shape and the texture. Same thing's going on in the clothes and on his hands and on that Browne camera that he's holding. You got great engagement with the eyes, his expression. He is absolutely bang right through that lens and with you, Philip. I just thought it was a great portrait. It says a lot about this person. You know, it says a huge amount about this person. And I just thought it was absolutely cracking. I also happened to notice that you posted this in the group a while back and said, oh, I don't know, do you think I should enter this? Of course, I keep very, very quiet when I see things, but I thought, oh, I hope you do. So, everybody, that brings us to the end of another. I nearly called it a photo lockdown challenge then. Another photo creative. It has been a pleasure and a privilege talking to you all, of course. Thank you very much indeed for joining us. Keep going with the challenges. You know, if you're someone who's been watching from the sidelines, please keep going with the challenges. If you're confused with things that I say about arguing with light meters and the light meter's just a starting point and focal length and apertures, there's a link below to my Masterclass in Photography. Many of you guys have done it and many of you have written wonderful 5-star reviews. If you're someone who's struggling with this and thinking, well, why should I buy a course when there's all this free stuff on YouTube? I would only say stop trying to learn everything from everyone, because everyone has a different way of teaching, and is what you're learning in the correct sequence to make sense. So in the description below there is a link. You can on that page even go and try a free sample, but you know, it's going to cost you less than a cheap second-hand lens, and you're going to have it for the rest of your life. Once you've learned that stuff, you've got it forever. Then you can focus on, where's the rim light coming from, how do I do this, what about the background, how can I make this absolutely rock. Once again, pleasure talking to everybody. The next challenge is already live on the site, as I know some of you noticed, because we cocked up and put it live too early. So once again, go do the challenges, get stuck in there. This one is a little bit different. Go and have a look yourselves. Thank you for your support, everyone who makes small donations. And once again, I wish you all well until next time. Take care, guys.